You're listening to the Plane Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carla Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 205 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and joining me, as always, in the barn studio this week is my co-host, Matt Smith.
Well, hello everybody. Hello. Welcome. It's Sunday morning today, and I must say, it is blooming gorgeous outside.
It's lovely.
It really is. It's a shame it's not like -5 or whatever it actually is.
0 degrees,
yeah,
Matt. 0
it is actually
degrees.
Physically 0. But to be fair, one of our guests can actually beat that.
Yeah, he can.
Today, can't he? I'm sure he will inform us about that in just a moment.
And also joining us for this week's show, as always, is our awesome other co-host of the show. It's Sir Neville Bounds.
Yes, hello folks, and I don't know what time you think it is, Matt, but it's afternoon where I am. I know we're on a different time zone. Probably it's that 130-mile distance. It is a different time zone.
Yeah, look, come on, it was all going too well.
But hello everybody, and hope everybody's well. And looking forward to another great show today. So good to be back.
Excellent.
Yes, you were missed last week, Nev.
You were.
It wasn't the same without you. It wasn't the same.
It was a bit chaotic last week. I just looked at the show a couple of times. Oh, yes, there's a lot going on there. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, that's the trouble. You see, it's like when we haven't got anyone there to control the ship in the.
I don't know what you're going to say.
I know. I don't know. Stirring the what now? No, moving on. Okay. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, it was.
You were sorely missed, sir. Yes, calm and order has been restored this week, at least for the moment. We'll see what happens as we introduce our next guest.
I know, but that may well all change very soon with our guest host this week, joining us again from somewhere where it's incredibly cold. Welcome, Captain Al.
Good afternoon to you, everyone, and it is definitely afternoon here, shortly becoming evening. I'm UTC plus 1 hour in deepest, darkest Poland, where it's currently -10 degrees Celsius. Which on the Fahrenheit scale is just flipping cold.
Right, yes.
And when I went to work this morning, it was -17 degrees Celsius, which on the Fahrenheit scale is also something beginning with F.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, indeed. Fresh and cold is where he's going with that.
How is that even possible? Yeah. That's just crazy.
Actually, all jokes aside, Al, I mean, how much of an impact? Sorry, I'm going to be really boring and ask an aviation-related question here. I know. Brace yourselves, everyone. How much? I mean, those kind of temperatures. I mean, what kind of impact does that have in how you actually fly when it's that cold, or is it more like what has to be done on the ground before you go in the air?
Generally speaking, one of the biggest issues that we have is, especially if the aircraft has been parked up overnight, the doors tend to freeze in exactly the same way as your car door. If you've ever gone to your car door after a hard frost and gone to open it and flipping heck, it's stuck. Yeah. So the engineers have to sort of de-ice the doors to open them up, and they're very good here. They have all of the air conditioning on. So when you get on the aircraft, it's all nicely warmed up.
Oh, wow.
And to be honest, the modern aeroplanes don't struggle too much with the cold, but it does sometimes take a little bit of coercion to get certain things up and running with the temperature. But one of the things that you have to do in exactly the same way as you do with your car is you have to de-ice the aeroplane before you go flying. So it's ultra important that you don't have any contaminant on the wings and the tail. And after a pretty hard frost, I think it got down to about -20 overnight. Then that needs to be de-iced. And then as it was snowing this morning, the aircraft is then anti-iced. So there's two treatments applied, if you like. One is removing all of the snow and ice and frost off the aeroplane, and then the second one is preventing it from forming. And the second part has a limited life. It's called a holdover time, which is a function of the type of fluid that's used, the weather conditions, and the actual temperature. So,
wow, that is so.
This morning we had a holdover 105 minutes, so that.
Unfortunately, you're breaking up a little bit there, Al, unfortunately. But, we get the gist. It's
okay, no problems. What I'll do is I'll ditch the camera.
Oh, okay. There we are. We saw him briefly for about... hopefully that'll hold fire then. Yes or no? It's been absolutely...
Yeah, I'm sorry about it. It's this classic sort of situation with hotel Wi-Fi. You kind of largely stuck with what you get.
Yes.
Actually, Neil Lamborn in the chat room just said, sort of, where roughly in Poland are you?
Roughly speaking, Katowice.
Okay.
Okay, very cool. And have you had much chance to sort of have a look around? I mean, some of these countries are like sort of Poland area and that they're just stunning. They're just not places where people think about going to visit, are they? I mean, we really should.
Too cold.
Well, because it's too cold. Yeah.
Actually, one of the reasons that quite a lot of people do come to Katowice is it's, relatively speaking, one of the nearest airports to Auschwitz.
Okay.
Right.
Which obviously a lot of people choose to visit for a variety of reasons.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, I've been twice myself.
Yeah.
I'm not going to suggest for 1 minute that it's a whip-cracking, smiling day.
No.
But it's certainly something that if you have the opportunity, if you find yourself in this part of continental Europe, if you get the chance to go, then
it's a must, really, isn't it? It's definitely one of those places
in a nice way.
Indeed, it's one of those places that's on my bucket list, actually, rightly or wrongly, as you say, because I know if you've ever been at the Imperial War Museum, they have a sort of an exhibit that talks you through that, and that is that ever since then, actually, that's why it's been on my bucket list, really, is to sort of go and pay homage and respect, I suppose, the best way to describe that. Anyway. We should probably do some kind of aviation-related news. What do you reckon?
I know. I expect you.
Are you right there, Carl?
Sorry,
you seem a little distracted.
No, I was just looking. Actually, I was looking on the map of Poland to see whereabouts Al is. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mash has asked a great question.
Pretty close to the Czech border, actually.
Yeah, I see that.
You can get into the Czech Republic very quickly.
Yeah, Mash has asked a great question. Actually, who's the one that gets to go outside and scrape the windows?
Well, fortunately, that's not really an issue because the windows are heated. So as soon as the airplane's powered up, the windshields are heated, and any sort of snow or ice tends to melt quite quickly off the windows. That's the windows at the front, of course, the expensive ones.
Yes.
The cheap ones down the side of the aeroplane.
Don't care about those.
Although they just stay frosted up.
Yeah, we don't care about those. That's fine.
About the passengers.
Yeah, we don't need to see out. That's fine. It's a good thing. Right then, come on then.
Well, shall we just briefly say a quick hello to everyone who has joined us in the live chat room today. All the usual faces, as always. Great to see everyone take time out of their Sundays to come and join us this afternoon.
Indeed, yes, very good of them. So
we're going to start this show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Matt.
I am indeed, yes.
If you're ready, Nev.
Yes, definitely.
And if you're still there, Al.
I'm still here.
Okay, let's go. So, kicking off this week's first news story, this one's on the newsandstar.co.uk, and it's actually regarding one of the airline carriers in the UK who most people would think of as being a road transport haulier. Oh. So that's Stobart
of course,
Group.
Eddie
Stobart, yeah. Stobart Group considering offer for airline FlyB. So Stobart Group is planning to offer the first commercial passenger flights from and to Carlisle Airport from June, and no carrier has yet been announced. The airline shares have climbed as speculation that an agreement between the two firms had been reached has mounted. But a statement from Stobart Group said the board notes the movement in the share price of FlyB and press speculation to a potential takeover of FlyB Group plc by Stobart Group. It said Stobart Group and FlyB had a range of shared interests arising from Stobart Group's ownership of London Southend Airport and its and its aircraft leasing company and the growing franchise agreements between the two group airlines. It added, as previously disclosed in October 2017, we've been reviewing alternative structures for our airline and leasing businesses that can play an important part in the consolidation of the regional airline sector. The firm said a number of potential structures have been considered, including taking a non-controlling interest in a vehicle to acquire 100% of FlyB in cash. But it added it's not possible to say at this stage whether the transaction will take place and whether a firm proposal will be made, or if it's a formed transaction to be combined. The airlines might take. A further announcement will be made in due course. So obviously we all know, most of us know about FlyB, quite a popular airline here, a regional airline here in the UK that flies from Southend. And actually I was talking to Matt before the show.
Yeah, we were.
Southend's actually starting to become quite a popular airport to take off from in the UK here for people wishing to go on holiday, because of,
if they hadn't called it London Southend, I might be feeling a bit more inclined to
but obviously it's good news for Carlisle as well, because get flights from there, people can fly from there.
Right, is that London Carlisle?
London Carlisle,
okay.
yeah,
Just
that's
wondered,
it, yeah. But
it's a natural city pair, those two, are they?
No, indeed.
I didn't realise actually as well, Matt, when I googled London, because I've never flown from London.
Other search engines are available, of course. Yes.
I've never flown from Southend Airport, and it's less than 2 hours drive from here.
It's not far. No, it is sort of. It's about half an hour. Well, I don't know. Actually, it's probably about 15-20 minutes on top of going to Stansted from us here. So it's a close one. I mean, it's. I don't know. I do think. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, MAG has done wonderful things since they started owning Stansted in this area. I mean, so maybe private ownership is the way to ensure that airports get invested in. Maybe I don't know.
And cheap flights as well from Southend, as we were discussing before the show as well.
Well, we were saying. I mean, maybe that is because they're not having to pay quite so much. The fees are less, therefore they can pass some of that on to the. I mean, I don't know if that's something you'd know about, Al. Is it? I mean, it does sound like
it is. I mean, I don't know specifically with regards to Southend Airport, but a lot of, shall we call them secondary airports then?
Yeah.
Are in a position where they can offer very small, if indeed any, fees to the airlines, because what they will do is endeavour to make their money in the shops.
Yeah.
Or, alternatively, what they will do is they will come to a deal with the airline whereby all of those excess baggage charges, your suitcase or your handbag is 2.6 centimetres too big, sir, they retain those charges. Yeah. So there are quite a lot of secondary airports that don't charge the airline anything.
Which is, again, those can be passed on, can't they, directly to the consumer, essentially. Yeah.
Which is probably why we have such an issue here with our airport at Norwich.
Yeah, because you have to pay over the odds to.
Yeah, it's expensive to fly from Norwich in my previous experience, and that is mainly down to the cost imposed on the airlines by Norwich Airport for the fees and stuff. So perhaps that's one to look forward to.
Historically, some airports have oversold this thing of locality, and it's your local airport, and have kind of suggested to the airlines, well, we're here if you want to operate. And I think the tables have turned somewhat now. People have realised that the dynamics of air travel are different, and it's not a case of trying to make your money by charging for landing fees or handling it. It's alternative revenue streams, and whether Norwich have sort of grasped onto that, I don't know. They've always been, well, I don't know if you still have the KLM connection to Amsterdam out of Norwich, but it's never really been a bustling airport.
No, it is. I mean, it's always sort of suffered from. I mean, you get a couple of flights into and out of maybe Jersey and Guernsey and things like that, but it is basically sort of flying out to Schiphol and then beyond. Although I have to say, one of the carriers, and I've forgotten, I don't know whether it's linked to KLM or it's another airline. You can do like trips to the Canaries direct from Norwich and stuff now. So there are some
Transavia.
Something
I think
like that.
is one of the airlines. That
flies so I mean, it is possible to go to sort of other destinations. Of course, they do a lot of. Not so much plane-wise, but because Norwich Airport is heavily utilised by the oil rig industry,
very much so,
where they sort of fly out either up to Edinburgh and then out to the rigs, or direct. So it's just a shame, really. As I say, perhaps they could sort of learn something from the whole Southend. Who knows? We could have a Norwich. We could have a London Norwich in no time at all, couldn't we, really? But
anyway,
there we are. Yes.
So moving on to the next story, Matt, which is...
Absolutely. Whilst we're talking about airports, and Amsterdam got mentioned,
All right.
I'd just like to point out that I was in Amsterdam Airport Schiphol very recently, And they've introduced a fantastic service in Schiphol. It's on trial at the moment, and that is that you can go online onto Deliveroo, and you can place an order for food to be delivered to you at the gate.
No!
Oh,
Are you serious?
Absolutely serious.
Only you would be the one to
You
test
heard it
that,
here
wouldn't you?
first, guys.
Absolutely, there we are. Have you ever considered that, Nev? Maybe having, some kind of light snack delivered to your gate at BA?
No, I just think that's just going to be. I just can't imagine the difficulties people are going to get into. But it's a great concept. It'd be interesting to see how well the take up is, won't it?
It would.
Well, it was quite interesting because I actually had mine delivered to the lounge at Schiphol,
Right.
and when the Deliveroo guy came up in his Deliveroo uniform with my chicken kebab,
Right.
he came to the desk, obviously, and the girls there were sort of like semi-aghast, and I thought, no, this is going badly wrong. I'm going to get accused of lowering the tone in the lounge. But no, they didn't realise that the service existed. It had only just launched, and they were also then on their phones ordering food for delivery.
No way! Really, that's amazing. I wonder if we can get McDonald's. No, sorry.
Well,
Anyway,
apparently, according to Jen Niffer,
Yeah.
at her airport, pilots can get coffee at the gate if they know me and tell me they're flying in.
Yes, I know,
Wink.
but that's because Jen Niffer is a legend, you see.
I know.
The personal
Well,
service.
absolutely, and that's a fantastic service, Jen. But how about taking this idea that Schiphol have? Do you think it would take off in the US with having someone deliver food from the catering facilities in the airport to the gate? I can see it really spreading.
I just have visions of mopeds going through the terminal.
Whizzing their way through the terminal. Yes, indeed. I'm not sure this is the. I'm not entirely sure this is the way forward. Anyway, we're going to move away from food. Otherwise, we're going to get told off. So this is the Sun
rather
News.
disturbing.
Yeah, it is
story,
very
this one,
disturbing.
Matt.
And there is a video that I will try and play when I've finished reading it. So it's on the Sun newspaper. So obviously, brace yourselves. It's going to be a certain kind of story. It's obviously story 2. It's a Ryanair story, and the headline is not a good one. So I'm not going to read it out, actually, to be honest. But we'll just bash into the story. As I say, it's thesun.co.uk. If you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, then you need to look this story up on the Sun newspaper and watch the video, because it says basically a ranting Ryanair passenger was kicked off a flight after he was caught on film ripping off his shirt and threatening to batter the cabin crew. The unnamed passenger, who spoke with a British accent, no surprise there, launched a foul-mouthed tirade at staff on an early morning flight from Stansted Airport to Tenerife. The plane was then quickly diverted to Marrakesh Airport in Morocco, where he was arrested by local police. They put cops here. I can't read that out. That offends me. The security staff ran to confront the slurring yob after the other passengers complained about the behaviour. Then, when he was told to calm down by the high-vis steward, he screamed, "How about you calm down?" and then an expletive. Who's got a problem with me? If one of you tries to take me prisoner one more time, I'll smash your face in. It's safe to say that
Nice
he really
chap.
was. Yes, a really nice chap here now. And I know we are the first here to sit here and run down Ryanair and all that kind of thing. But I mean, whichever the airline is, nobody deserves to have to deal with abuse like this. And it's just all this is going to do is open up the argument about drinking like before you get on the plane, isn't it? This is just going to open yet another can of worms, essentially. I mean, is it just? I mean, I wonder if it is if this thing was going on all the time, but it's only now that really it's become a bit of a story thing. So every time something like this happens, people like the Sun and the Mirror and the Mail and all that kind of thing are publishing it. I mean, do you think numbers have gone up, or is it just because more people are flying, perhaps, that wouldn't necessarily be able to afford to, or what? I don't know what your thoughts are, gents.
Yeah, I think this happens reasonably regularly, but of course it's a delight for the red top newspapers, isn't it? They like nothing better than this kind of story. I'm disgusted actually at the whole thing, mainly that the poor framing of the shot there, out of focus.
Right.
Nobody's thought about the production.
What
a nightmare,
Indeed, absolutely. As I say, if you're watching the YouTube version, I'm actually running the video as Nev is talking there. It's just nobody should have to put up with this kind of abuse. I mean, I know we've said this before. What's happened to people having respect in regard? I mean, air travel used to be such a respectful thing, didn't it?
Well, what's happened? I mean, let's be honest with it. This has been caused by drink, hasn't it? That's the first thing, and it's very well known, isn't it, that after one or two drinks, you lose your inhibitions fairly quickly. And if you are the sort of person that has a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, it doesn't take very much at all to send you into a sort of rage. And this is exactly what's happened here, I think. And the trouble is that there's no way back from it. Once it kicks off, then that's it, really, isn't it? It's very difficult to calm the situation down.
We were talking about it, actually, myself and Carlos, before we started broadcasting, and actually we were saying, I hope he's received a lifetime ban for that. I mean, I don't know. It just makes me so cross, doesn't it? Why?
Certainly, Acme Pink have a blacklist of passengers who've caused trouble on board, and they will not be allowed to fly on Acme Pink ever again. It's as simple as that.
Do you think? I mean, you see, I wonder if there ought to be a little bit of joined-up thinking here. I think the airlines, I mean, in the pubs here in the UK, we have something called Pub Watch. So it's like a banned from one, banned from all list, and we share that list amongst ourselves along with photographs. Obviously, it's all operated by the police, so it's all legit. It's not like above, sort of doing something that we shouldn't. But I mean, surely they could do something like this. You know, it wouldn't, especially in modern day technology today. I mean, okay, it's going to be difficult for everybody to identify who it is, and even with our pub watch scheme that we run here, you get the odd face that's not recognised. But there must be a way of putting like a banned from one, banned from all type system in place, so that nobody. So if you get banned, say, for flying on Ryanair, and it's a clear case of the fact that this guy was being abusive, etc., then they could also be banned from Acme Pink. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, it is a good idea. I'm sure it's being talked about. There are a couple of issues. There will be the inevitable, data protection issues that always, come into these situations. And the other one, unfortunately, is that it's very difficult to keep a track on individuals, because passports expire usually after 10 years. Yeah. And usually the way that they're identified is by their passport number. Yeah. So, of course, you get a new passport, and to all intents and purposes, you have, if you like, a new identity. You're still the same person, but you now have a new passport number. And it is difficult because you will come across people with the same name, same date of birth, especially in countries. I mean, in the UK, a good one would be John Smith. There must be hundreds, in theory, of John Smiths all born on the same day. So people with common name sets with shared date of birth. So it's very difficult under those circumstances. But yes, it would be nice. It would unfortunately come down to governments to administer this, and I don't think there's quite the appetite to spend the money, really. Yeah, true. But then, okay, all right, bearing in mind you couldn't do it sort of like worldwide, but, maybe they could do a sort of, like, because we do have the reputation for it, let's be honest. Maybe it ought to be something that's done here in the UK so that these bad people are not then going to other parts of the world and shaming us, sort of when they get the other end in, say, let's say Benidorm as an example. It's just like, I don't know. I think it's interesting you say that, Mark. Yet we certainly have a public profile of being heavily involved as Brits in disturbances on aeroplanes, but they're by no means unique to the UK. It just seems to be that our media are much more prone to run stories on it, whereas it seems to me that in Central and Eastern Europe, certainly, the media don't seem to want to popularise it or sensationalise it in the same way as football hooligans, really. Yeah. That problem exists elsewhere in Europe. It's not just a UK thing. No. But it's treated very differently by the media, and indeed, to a degree, by the police. If in a lot of countries in Europe, if you have a serious disturbance on board, it will be the riot police who come on board, not just your local airport police guy. Now, I have to say, in the UK, the airport police are tooled up. Yeah. But if you've had a punch-up, they're not really likely to use their firearms. But I have seen a taser used in the UK for a disturbance. But yeah, I think the problem is It's certainly universal across Europe. It's just treated differently and perceived differently.
Right.
Yeah, I think, yes, firearms used for disturbances. An interesting concept, very direct, but does cause a lot of paperwork, would be my summary.
Yes, indeed. And nobody likes paperwork, let's be honest. Let's not open that Donald Trump-style can of worms, shall we not? Okay.
Anyway,
moving on.
Moving on. Moving on to the next story, and as always, a special first-class story for Nev.
You spoil me, you really do. And it's from the Evening Standard, another fantastic aviation resource that I use all the time, in fact. And,
it's ever since our ex-chancellor is in charge of it, isn't it? That's exactly what it is, isn't it?
It's a BA story, of course, and this is about the fact that BA passengers forced to hold it for hours on flight to Tenerife after on-board toilet issue. Customers on the British Airways flight endured a half-hour delay before the plane took off on Wednesday morning, and then they were left without the use of a toilet for around 3 hours in the air, the Press Association reported. According to Air Traffic Tracker Flight Radar, which is actually Flight Radar 24, I think you'll find.
Indeed.
The 9:05 a.m. flight from Gatwick had to make an almost 180-degree turn as it was diverted to Faro Airport, landing at approximately 1 p.m. It was on the ground around half an hour before continuing to its destination, and a British Airways spokeswoman would not confirm exactly how long passengers were left without the use of a toilet on the flight. The airline also did not say what took place during the brief stop, nor whether the issue was due to toilet checks not being done before takeoff, or whether a separate problem was discovered whilst airborne. A spokeswoman said, "We got our customers on their way to their destination in just over half an hour and said sorry for the delays to their journeys. The disruption sparked knock-on delays of more than 2 hours for passengers on the returning flight from Tenerife to London." Well, as usual, with the Press Association and the Evening Standard, it's just slight lack of evidence and slight lack of facts there, and one of them being that I don't think a 747-400 is a normal rotation between Gatwick and Tenerife.
Oh no! Oh dear, you've got to love a love an accurate story, haven't you?
Actually, Captain Al, what is the minimum equipment list for toilets operational on a flight if you have an issue?
0.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Because it's not a flight safety issue.
Okay, right.
Okay.
So you might...
Passenger convenience is a different matter, but from a flight safety point of view, there's no requirement for serviceable toilets from an MEL point of view.
Right. Okay.
So what about if before you take off all the three toilets on board the 320?
Depends on the size of the craft.
Yeah. Or if all the toilets are in op, is that kind of a no-go then?
Depends on where you're going.
Again,
I suppose.
it depends where you are and where you're going.
Yeah.
So if it's somewhere, say for example, where it would be almost impossible to get them repaired, well then you're going to go, but just maybe not necessarily to the destination that you were originally planning. It's quite a dynamic equation, that one, and different companies will have different rules.
Policies.
Quite clearly, if you were going to go, say, from Gatwick to Rio de Janeiro, it might be a bit of a problem if you dispatched without having any toilets working. But if, say, you were doing, I don't know, trying to choose something that's reasonably short, like Birmingham, Manchester, or, Heathrow to Manchester or something, you might just say, look, this is the situation, go before boarding the aeroplane, and off we go.
First Officer Mike in the chat room said that I thought you have to have one at least for the flight crew.
Well, maybe on the Boeing there is a requirement, because they're a bit weak-bladdered on Boeing, aren't they? So.
And Richard Adams has said that gives a whole new meaning to bucket list.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yes. I mean, is that an option?
I mean, they have a tendency to wear, Claudia Schiffer's knickers on a Boeing flight.
Right.
So,
Yes, of course. Right.
A toilet needed is probably essential, isn't
Still,
it?
what you do in your own time is.
You could always take your porta potty, I suppose, Matt.
You could take your
caravan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Oh, yeah. You're allowed, that at least has a tank that you could, sort of keep everything under control for. It's all part of the fun, as they say.
It is.
Yeah. Anyway.
So
who's going next?
So, Al, can you take the next one, or have you?
Yeah, I'm having a little fiddle, as it were, but I can do the next one.
Okay.
Is this the
CBS News
story, the United story?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, if you're wondering what the fiddle is, I've relocated to a different part of the room where I think the Wi-Fi is a bit more stable.
Yes.
Now I'm perched by the door of the hotel room.
I was a bit concerned. I thought you were in the toilet for a moment, I've got to be honest. But anyway, maybe the acoustics are better in the bathroom.
No. I can't get to the bathroom either. That's MEL'd off because of the table and the stool.
Oh, okay.
The stool. Anyway.
Yeah. Moving on. See what you did there.
Anyway, this comes from the CBSNews.com website, and the headline is "Twice diverted United Airlines plane skids off runway in Green Bay." Skids, there we go. We've still got the toilet theme.
Nice one, Al. Moving on.
Okay, so a United Airlines flight bound from Houston to Minneapolis made 2 unscheduled landings and ran off the runway after a second one early Friday. Unscheduled landings and ran off the runway after the second one early Friday, the carrier says. United says flight 878. I should have put my glasses on to read this. Hang on. United says flight 878 was first sent to Madison, Wisconsin, due to severe weather in Minneapolis. The plane took off from Madison, but severe weather prompted another diversion, this time to Green Bay, where it skidded off the runway, United says, adding that no one was hurt, apart from some pride, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, indeed.
We're in contact with all customers and providing alternative transportation, including flights and buses. The buses are obviously for those people who say, I ain't getting on no aeroplane again. The airline said in a statement, customers were also provided with meals and hotel accommodations. Passenger Tom DeCimio tells CBS News there were roughly 160 passengers on board. When the plane landed, the pilot hit the brakes in full reverse. Is that him going backwards or the brakes in reverse? We're not really sure. And it got really bumpy. That would be as it came off the runway then. And then he realised something had gone awry. Well, yes. The plane stopped 100 to 150 feet off the runway, he says. DeCimio told CBS News it took 45 minutes to deplane in Green Bay. The captain did a good job of communicating with the people as they got off and was very apologetic, DeCimio adds.
There he goes.
Yeah, there he
goes.
goes.
He's got his camera right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
that's the end of the story.
So it's safe to say they had a slight issue.
Yes.
But I'm not going to say what type of aircraft this is because Al will just nitpick.
Right. Okay.
Well, what is it then? Come on.
It's a quality piece of aviation material.
Is it?
Al.
Right. Quality, was it a TriStar, is it?
And obviously this particular Boeing was trying to avoid an Airbus which was stuck on the runway at the time, I'd imagine, which is why he skidded off.
Right, okay.
Okay, well, I'm no expert, and I've not got my glasses on, but is it a 737 by any chance?
Yes, it is, Al.
Right, well, the 737, and I'm sure that there are learned people in the chat room who fly the 737 will potentially agree with me. The 737 is not very good at stopping. It has the brakes of a Citroen 2CV, to be perfectly honest.
Right. Okay. I'm sure it's a little bit more industrial than that.
When Monarch Airlines were planning on having the 73 MAX, it was one of the operational issues that they faced, is that the stopping performance has a negative impact on the amount of weight that you can carry out of destinations, because obviously if you have to abandon the takeoff, then you do need to stop before the end of the runway. That's part of the deal, especially if you're at somewhere like Gibraltar where the passengers haven't paid extra to go swimming.
Yeah.
So the stopping performance of the 73 is not good. And I know that they've been having some pretty rotten weather in that part of the United States, so that will have compounded matters quite considerably.
Do you know?
Do they have those carbon fibre or carbon brakes where they're not very effective until they're very hot?
Same as your Formula One car. They need to be hot before they become most effective. But it just seems to be that the 737 just doesn't have very good stopping performance for its weight, and obviously over the years they've increased the weight quite considerably. You've got the 737-800, which is quite heavy. But if you look at the wheels and the brake packs, they don't seem to have changed an awful lot.
No. I must say, actually, going slightly off topic here, Al, you've given me the most amazing and ingenious idea, because one of the things I hate most of all when I do stay in hotels is the fact that they make you put one of your keys in the thing just so you can keep the damn lights on. And what he's done here, look, is just absolute genius. Why have I not thought of this before as a way of keeping the lights on? Absolutely. That's actual genius right there. You see, that is some joined up thinking right there.
We don't need to use a business card, which of course you'll have actually paid money for. Usually hotels are very good and put various pieces of their own literature in your room, which if you fold up nicely fits in the slot perfectly.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, this is brilliant. Yeah, this show is full of useful advice. I know. I think so. Anyway,
and coming from Al.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, well, I expect nothing less. You see, exactly. Well, let's be honest. I mean, these pilot guys have probably got more experience about blooming hotels than you or I could ever possibly imagine. Or Nev, to be fair, you must spend a lot of time in hotel rooms as well.
I do, not quite as much as Al does, though.
No, sure. Indeed, absolutely. Yes, and yours is usually one particular chain, if you can at all get away with it.
Indeed, although that's not particularly an option these days. But where I'm staying at the moment, I have to say that the hotel is very nice. The staff here are very, very friendly, and the air conditioning works, which is great because I've got it at a nice temperature. As you can maybe see, I'm in short sleeves,
yeah, absolutely.
So even though it's -10 outside, but no, it's not part of the Hilton group that I love dearly. So there's no points collection going on here. But the ladies who work in the restaurant are very scrummy.
Right. Okay. And that is motivation, if ever there was one, for staying at a particular hotel. Good. Okay. Whose go is it next, please?
So the next story. This one is on another one of our red bannered amazing news feeds here in the UK. This one's on the mirror.co.uk. It has a video as well, which Matt will play, I expect, during the story. But the headline: terrifying moment. Lightning strikes wing of Ryanair flight bound for Dublin. So a video captured by a passenger on board the flight bound for Dublin showed the bolt hit the tip of the left wing. The video captured by a passenger on board the flight bound for Dublin showed the bolt hitting the left wing, and he filmed it during turbulent weather on February the 17th. Worried fellow flyers can be heard expressing their concerns before and after the incident. Most of the passengers appear not to have seen the lightning strike, but Ryanair confirmed the incident, saying that the flight from Grenoble to Dublin on the 17th of February encountered a lightning strike shortly after departure from Grenoble before continuing its flight and landing normally at Dublin Airport. Matt's enjoying this video.
Sorry,
apparently Ryanair engineers inspected the aircraft and cleared it to return straight back into service.
That is absolutely insane. Guys, if you are listening to the audio version of the show, this is the video clip that I'm playing is actually from the Mirror website, and that's just. I mean, wow! I mean, it goes to. I mean, I know they say, "Oh, you should never be worried about lightning and that because planes, are designed for this kind of thing." It's just wow.
When you see it, it is a bit kind of worrying when you see things like this. But it happens all the time. Al will obviously back this up. He's probably had a few times when he's had a bit of lightning strike his aircraft at some point.
Yeah, I think I'm up to 5 or 6 now. It's not something that happens all the time, obviously, but. Candidly, it's a non-event.
But it's good
exciting to watch, maybe. Yeah. And although passengers or other passengers say they might not have seen it, they will probably have heard it, because you usually get quite a loud bang when you get hit by lightning.
Yeah, I bet.
But
I'm just watching the video now, actually. It took me a little while to get it up.
Yeah, that is...
excuse the expression.
Indeed, yes, that's what she said. It's a stunning sort of... well, it's unusual to get it sort of captured and that as well, but it's just... from my point of view, as a nervous flyer, I mean, actually, I'm watching that video, and yes, it is, sort of shocking and all that kind of thing, but actually, I mean, it literally, as you say, it's like a non-event. Like, this massive bolt of huge amounts of electricity strikes, the fin at the end where it sort of goes, where it curves up the fish tail, or what do you call it, the shark fin?
Well, the new ones, they're scimitus winglets, but they are just.
But I mean, you can see the video that we're watching now. You can see where it's actually
Boeing
hit.
In the video, isn't it? So it's what they call an Airbus copy.
Right. Okay. Right. Splendid. Anyway, but I mean, it hasn't even made a mark. I mean, that's the most craziest thing. It's just like,
well, it will have made a mark. There will be a scorch mark on the aeroplane where the lightning entered the aircraft. There will be a small perforation where the lightning hit. So it will have made a small hole in the aircraft, and it will have travelled through the aircraft and have left the aircraft, not necessarily anywhere near where it hit. And usually when it leaves the aircraft, it leaves several little holes. And we're talking... if you imagine the size of a pin, not the thin end, but the thick end, so a pinhead size hole. So there will be some damage.
Okay. First Officer Mike in the chat room has said that he's never been hit by lightning in his 10 years in the sky yet. So.
Yes, but that's because he's on the 787, so he rarely flies. It's
normally US, isn't it? Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you're unlikely to be hit by lightning in a hangar, are you, Mike?
Right. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Good. I'm so pleased. Right. Quick before we get into trouble. Somebody else. Quick, read the story.
This is you, actually, Matt.
Actually. Oh, is it? Yeah. Oh, flipping heck! I need to load the story then. Sorry, I was too busy.
This next story is actually a special one for Jenny over in Rome.
Okay. Yeah. So this is on the USA Today. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's the one.
And the headline is: Air Italy new airline looks to push out Alitalia. So Italian carrier, is it Meridiana?
Meridiana, yeah.
Meridiana is rebranding itself as Air Italy as part of an ambitious plan to overtake perennially troubled Alitalia as Italy's top global carrier. Thanks for this, Carlos. The new airline, already Italy's number 2 carrier, says that it can take
Malpensa.
I'm really enjoying this story. The new airline, already Italy's number 2 carrier, says that it will make Malpensa. You're doing this on purpose to torture me. Its main hub, and plans to quadruple its fleet and passenger numbers by 2022. The new Milan to Bangkok route will launch in September, part of a broader effort to beef up both domestic and regional schedules. Air Italy also talked of a reinforced base at Rome's Fiumicino. No.
Very good.
Fiumicino.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, very good.
Fiumicino Airport. Do you know what helps? Is because I remember at our 200th, I remember Jenny actually saying it to me, where it also plans to add long-haul routes. Meridiana's rebranding and growth strategy is being helped by Qatar Airways, Qatar, which brought a 49% stake in the Italian carrier airline last year. The effort to become Italy's top carrier comes as Alitalia, Italy's biggest player in aviation, is yet again facing an uncertain future as it reorganises under bankruptcy protection. Air Italy says it intends to grow its fleet from around a dozen aircraft now to approximately 50 by 2022. That will include 20 new Boeing 737 MAX jets, as well as Airbus A330s and Boeing 787 wide bodies. More to sit in a hangar then, by the sound of it, for long-haul routes. 5 of Air Italy's A330s will be leased from Qatar, with said airline Airways CEO Akbar Al-Baker saying that would be done at market rates according to Flight Global. The company also rolled out a new paint scheme for its planes as part of the rebranding that will look to include the maroon colour that is dominant. That is the dominant colour on the Qatar imagery. Sorry, that's probably the worst reading of the story ever.
Jenny from Rome is going to be emailing us now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be a lot of abuse.
She'll be after you, Matt.
No, I know, and I don't blame her.
I know. Air Italy, though, as they've only just been founded February this year.
Yeah.
Commenced operations on the first. Commencing operations on the 1st of March.
Yeah.
Their fleet, actually, their current fleet they've got on at the moment, they actually do have some 376-7300ERs, but as Matt said, they have got some Airbus on order, 20 of actually no, sorry, not 20, 5 of the A330
and some 787s as well. Perhaps they will plan to fly those. Who knows?
So a question for the chat room, if I may.
Ooh.
What did Meridiana used to be called?
Ooh.
What was its previous name?
Very good. Okay. Jenny has just popped up in the chat room, so it's
Meridiana, as in the airline.
Yeah.
Al.
Yeah. What was its previous? I know you're busily scrolling through Wikipedia.
Is he here with us?
Yeah, I think he might be. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, dear.
So what was its previous incarnation?
Yeah. Thanks for your comment in the chat room, by the way, Pip. Yes, Carlos will be changing my batteries during the break.
No takers on that then?
Alisada?
No, you don't know, Carlos. Do you?
No, okay. I'm looking. Oh, go on then, Al.
Yeah, go on.
It used to be called Air Italy.
Oh, right.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, that's uneventful. Sorry.
Oh, there we go.
We could have guessed that. Yeah, Jenny's actually said
back to its old name, basically.
Alisada, Jenny offered in the chat room, actually. Jenny's just popped up in the chat room just as we started talking about her.
Oh, Jenny.
Yeah, which is a slightly unnerving.
Actually, Jenny just said Alisada, yeah.
Yeah, Alisada. Yeah. So who are Alisada then? Are they, what were they originally?
Alisada. He goes back to Wikipedia again. Alisada, here we go.
Yeah. There were a couple of airlines that came together to form Meridiana. One of them was Air Italy.
Okay.
So it's a reversion to an old name.
Alisada were founded in 1963, ceased operations in 1991 to create Meridiana.
Very good. There we go. Very good indeed. Okay.
So
while I have my batteries changed, then someone else. Nev, I think it's your go.
It is, yes, and
this story's
an
awesome.
Interesting one. It's an unserviceable Boeing.
Right.
Unusual.
Okay.
Hardly news, is it?
No, indeed. But of course, it's in the Daily Mail, so of course.
Oh, it must be true. It must be true as well, which is always a guarantee.
Yes, and it says that tourists are flocking to see an abandoned Boeing jet in the middle of the field on the Indonesian island of Bali, but no one is sure how it got there. Surrounded by leafy trees, shipping containers and a hut, the plane rests in a large ditch just off the busy Raya Nusa Dua Selatan highway. Adding to the mystery, the enclosed plane has no identification or branding on it. There is some speculation from locals and aviation enthusiasts that its owner had a dream of turning the airliner into a restaurant but couldn't foot the bill to see the project through and so left it to rust. Despite it being behind a locked gate guarded by security, the plane has become a quirky tourist attraction. Katka and Mick, the couple behind the popular travel blog We Just Travel, went to look at the plane in 2017 after reading about it. You can climb onto the shipping containers for a side-on sightseeing experience, but for the best view in the field, you have to part with 10,000 Indonesian rupees in Indonesia, or
I think it may well be, but it'll be about $1 million now with their inflation.
Yes, right, it is, or 0.00895 Australian cents. Katka and Mick assured their blog readers that this price could be negotiated down to 5,000 Indonesian rupees. Another travel vlogger, Josh from Exploring with Josh, visited the airliner in 2016. I have no idea how they got the plane just to sit here, but it's here, Josh says in the video. He tried to bribe the guards for a closer look, but it was quickly denied. But the plane is not the only Boeing 737 to find an unusual home on the island. A second 737 sits 8 kilometres north in Kendonangan, an area of Jimbaran beach, famed for its grilled seafood restaurants. This one is right next door to a Dunkin' Donuts, and so close to the street that its wings hang over the road.
Wow.
It has its engines removed and sits propped up on stilts in an otherwise empty dock. In his vlog, Josh visits the second Boeing 737 and manages to climb into the cargo pit, which is filled with boxes of blankets. This is so cool to be inside a plane, though, he says. No one could really do this unless you were working for planes or building them, he said. What an extraordinary story. So they're saying there that...
I told you they didn't stop very well. I mean, he's managed to go 50 miles beyond the nearest airport.
Yep, and he's just stopped before he's gone into that...
Dunkin' Donuts.
That
would have been a disaster, that would have been, wouldn't it? I mean, I can cope with the loss of a Boeing. That's no great loss. But losing a Dunkin' Donuts...
Right, well, indeed, yeah, absolutely. One has to get one's priorities correct, obviously.
I was trying to see where you could... Because they say they don't know what the aircraft who it belonged to. But if you look, I mean, you can make out there was a name on the side of the fuselage on the first picture on that site that you put up, Matt.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it. It's MANDOL.
Don't know.
So yeah, I'm surprised no one knows which or where it came from or how it got there. To be sure.
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
Somebody there'll be a story behind it somewhere that will be very uneventful and unexciting. No
I mean,
doubt,
judging by the engine pods, they were Pratt and Whitney JT8D, so that puts it at being a 200 series 737. But
I think that was actually they look like a 300 series, don't they? They don't look like a 200 series, but
no, I think they're 200 series now.
Okay.
A disagreement is ensuing, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm offering an alternative.
An alternative, yes, indeed. The chat room will no doubt.
Bottom line is, it's a piece of junk rotting in the jungle.
I'm sure the chat room will be
ecstatic. Yeah, indeed. There we go. It's what's that? Oh, so
I'm just reading in the chat room as well.
Yeah, I can say I was. Yeah. Sorry, we should stop doing that and maybe carry on with the show.
Owen said it looks like Mandala Airlines airframe.
Okay.
And then Shorty said they ran out of fuel.
Right, just ran out of fuel, and that's where it ended up. Yeah, I suppose. Well, because it may well have been however long ago it was put there. Maybe it was a desert or something. I don't know. Perhaps it was supposed to be going to the junkyard in the desert, and they ran out of fuel.
I'd love one in my back garden personally, but there we go.
Yeah, I don't think your wife will. However,
no, I will one day have a flight deck of something in my bedroom or garden or something. Anyway, moving on. Captain Al. Next story is for you. It's especially for you, really, being it's an Airbus story.
Oh, good. Right.
Fantastic. And it actually comes from Flight Global, which is an actual aviation publication.
What a refreshing change, yes.
Yes. And the headline reads, Airbus completes 8,000th A320 family delivery. Airbus has passed a key milestone in single-aisle production with the delivery of its 8,000th A320 family aircraft. Flight Fleet's analyzer, easy for some to say, shows that the 8,000th A320 family aircraft to be produced, MSN, funnily enough, 8,000, a Pratt and Whitney PW1100G powered A320neo, B1068, that's its registration, was delivered to Air China on the 1st of February. The aircraft was delivered from Airbus's Chinese assembly line in Shanjin, and the aircraft had flown 10 days earlier on the 22nd of January. However, Airbus's monthly delivery summary shows that the 8,000th A320 family delivery in fact took place during the last day of January, when a total of 4 A320 family aircraft were delivered to 4 airlines, including Air India, an A320neo leased from CIT, Lion Air, Batik Air, an A320, Spirit Airlines, an A320, and Virgin America, which I seem to recall, are they no longer in that name anymore? I may be mistaken. Anyway, an A321neo leased from GCAS. The first ever A320 delivery. Yeah, Virgin America is part of Alaska now, isn't it, Carlos?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
The first ever A320 delivery, a CFM International CFM 56 powered A320-100 was made to Air France in March 1988. Carlos will be able to tell you who was number 1 in the pop charts of March 1988.
I wouldn't count on it.
As of the 1st of January,
as he goes on Wikipedia,
total A320 family orders stood at 14,135 aircraft. A320 family aircraft assembled on 4 lines worldwide: Toulouse and Hamburg in Europe, Mobile in the USA, and Shenzhen in China. Flight Fleets Analyzer shows the majority, 36% of the 8,000 deliveries, have been made to operators in the Asia-Pacific region.
Wow.
So that's a good story.
They're a really popular aircraft, aren't they? The A320s. I mean, they're a nice aircraft. Never mind all this Boeing rubbish. That's what I say. Yeah.
Very much so, and a real workhorse for a lot of airlines. Yeah. And it's been obviously going for nowhere near as long as the 737. Yeah. But I think the 737 shows its age, to be honest.
Yeah.
And for your information, Captain Al, March 1988 was Rick Astley and Never Gonna Give You Up.
Oh, an excellent choice. Excellent. An excellent song.
So there we go.
There we are. What a result that was. This is an aviation show, right?
I know,
just
but
checking.
the info just comes from everywhere.
Does it? Yeah, Wikipedia in your case, mostly.
I know. So moving on to the next story. This one is on the Bloomberg.com website. And a story we covered, I think it was last week, the week before, we had the story about the issues of Pratt having issues with their engines for the A320s. But Pratt and Whitney have succeeded in tamping down the latest crisis to threaten its $10 billion next-generation jet engine program with a temporary fix that will keep the Airbus planes flying until a permanent solution is found.
Right.
Pratt, a unit of United Technologies Corporation, scrapped a newly introduced seal that caused engine vibrations and took almost a dozen Airbus A320neos out of service, according to people familiar with the plan. A previous version will be installed at work but didn't last as long as expected, said the people asking not to be named because the details haven't been made public. Oh. The alteration buys time for engineers to perfect a so-called knife-edge compressor seal while minimising downtime for the A320neo Airbuses, which are most important because they're powered obviously by the Pratt engines, which are under intense pressure to fix the turbine, which competes with one made by a venture of General Electric Co. and Safran. Pratt developed a geared turbofan from the ground up to cement its status on the most widely flown type of aircraft, but it's been plagued by delays and glitches since it entered service in 2016. The engine maker said it released a revised configuration but didn't specify the nature of the change. The solution is based on a design which the company has significant experience, and this solution has received all the necessary regulatory approvals, Pratt said in a statement on Wednesday. Engines incorporating the change will be delivered at the beginning of next month. While the latest fix should help persuade investors that the turbine and the A320neo isn't about to suffer a major crisis, reverting to the original component itself, flawed, won't be sufficient in the longer term. Now, wouldn't you think that with something as incredibly important as an engine, being an engine manufacturer, you want to sort the issue out completely rather than get some sellotape and kind of put over the issue?
I think Al's just fallen off the loop. I don't like the word temporary solution.
Temporary solution.
Yeah, temporary solution makes me a little bit unnervous. A little nervous, it has to be said. But I guess it's better than them not being in service.
In service, yeah.
But I suppose there's, again, Al may be able to answer this one. There's a reason, presumably there's a reason why they moved away from the original seal. So
because it didn't last as long, apparently.
Right. Okay. So it was supposed to be a longer serving seal, for want of a better word. But it's obviously not worked if it's creating unusual vibrations and things like that.
Well, it says in the story as well, almost a third of the 113 Pratt-powered A320neos in operation are equipped with one or two of the engines with the latest flaw.
Oh.
So.
Oh dear.
Yeah. I think as engine manufacturers try to push the envelope with these new design engines, and quite clearly it's, not a similar issue with the Trent engines on the 787, but it is an engine issue. That we're getting towards the edge of the envelope in pushing out designs and then putting them into reality and seeing what happens. So I think it's an inevitability that, and it's happened throughout the life of aviation, really. The Rolls-Royce RB211 had a terrible introduction to service when it came into service all those years ago, but then proved to be an exceptionally reliable engine. The V2500 that sits on the wing of a lot of A321s was a pretty wretched engine when it first came into service, but now it was phenomenally reliable. So I suspect that, and this will be the case with the 787, that once these things are smoothed out, these engines will become real workhorses. But we are making ever, increasing demands on engines with regards to efficiency as we try to be green wherever possible. So I think it's just inevitable that there will be these little glitches, and I think that's all they are.
Well, let's hope that is literally just that, just a glitch. So we'll move on to the next story then. This is
interesting.
Well, my batteries have now been changed, so fingers crossed I'll be able to read this one a little better. This is the Traveller website, and the headline is "Duty-free liquor limits. Where can you fill your entire airline baggage with booze?" Like to BYO, which I presume they mean bring your own, when you head overseas. The laws on how much duty-free liquor you can bring in varying quantities, in varying... oh dear, no, it appears the battery change hasn't worked.
Going down the clunge here, Matt.
Yeah, indeed. So the laws of how much duty-free liquor you can bring in vary enormously from one country to another. And comparison site finder.com.au, so this is an Australian site, has done some digging on the subject. If you're travelling to Germany, for example, you could fill your entire airline baggage allowance with booze. The duty-free allowance for Germany is a massive hangover-inducing 22 litres, although 16 litres of that is for beer, 4 for non-sparkling wine, and 2 litres of liquor under 22% of alcohol. In Britain, it's just a shade less, 18 litres total, comprised of 16 litres of beer, 4 litres of wine, plus 2 litres of liquor under 22%, or 1 litre of over 22%. Asian nations generally have much lesser amounts. Taiwan, Hong Kong, South Korea, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines and Malaysia allow just 1 litre, while Vietnam, Singapore and Japan set the bar higher at 3 litres. The total Germany and Britain have such... I'm sorry, let's read that. I'm so sorry.
Are you right, Matt?
I don't know what's the matter with me this afternoon. It's a
break.
Sunday, you see. I'm supposed to be in a coma about now. The reason Germany and Britain have such high allowances is down to their membership of the European Union. Their citizens will often travel to other nations within the EU, and particularly to the larger wine-producing countries, including Italy, France and Spain, and stock up with beers and wines, and the EU Customs Union is liberal when it comes to transporting goods across frontiers for personal consumption. In Australia, the duty-free limit is 2.25 litres of any alcohol beverages per passenger aged 18 and over.
Do you know, I can't honestly remember the last time I flew anywhere, whether it be long haul or to Malta or anywhere, and I purchased duty-free alcohol. I just can't remember the last time I'd done that.
I've tended to do it in the airport.
I can imagine that Nev has picked up some at Gibraltar.
Oh, yeah, I certainly have. And am I right in saying that the Canary Islands as well are duty-free too?
Yes, they are, yes, yeah.
Yeah, so when I went to Fuerteventura, picked up a couple of litres there, and certainly every time I go to Gib, I bring Mrs. Nev back some gin. And obviously she does have a drink problem now, certainly.
Right. Okay, and on that brave bombshell, she's not listening downstairs again, is she, Nev? I mean, indeed, this could be a bit of a problem. Okay, good.
Only if she's padlocked Nev's studio, so we can't get out.
Well, there is that possibility. Absolutely, who knows? It's time to move on then to the next story. I don't know who's going his next. Really, it must be Nev. I think is normally
it's
next.
Me, and once again, it's another red top story from the Sun. Actually, quite a sensible story for a change by their standards, I must say. And it's all about the new high-tech scanners, and they're going to allow passengers to keep their shoes on at airport security gates, and prototypes are likely to be ready for testing at departures within a year. They are to be developed under a £1.8 million initiative by the Department of Transport, and a step-on shoe scanner to be produced in Derbyshire is amongst the systems to get the backing. It'll create high-contrast images to be analysed by computers set up to detect threats. Another walk-through system being developed in Wales will measure radiation levels. It should allow passengers to keep their coats on, and ministers hope that the new scanners will cut queues for security checks. Airports began asking some passengers to take off footwear after shoe bomber Richard Reed was caught on a 2001 flight. Aviation Minister Baroness Sugg said this latest £1.8 million of funding invests in innovative projects that will ensure we are continuing to capitalise on pioneering research. The aim is to have a safer and smoother travel experience for air passengers. The safety of people travelling on all modes of transport is our top priority, and Future Aviation Security Solutions Programme is just one example of the huge importance we place on the security of passengers. Security Minister Ben Wallace said, "We are determined to harness the power of innovation, and this ambitious programme will help us continue to use the best technologies as part of our aviation security." Well, that's all very good, but it's the same problems that they are always playing catch up with security, and there's always going to be someone that's one step ahead, which is why we're seeing these security measures coming in where you have to take your shoes off, and it was the liquids ban and all sorts of stuff. So it's a very tricky job. I would not like to be tasked with the job myself, because it's almost a never a no-win situation. But if this helps to stop some of the queuing at security, then that's probably got to be a good thing, isn't it?
Well, and that's probably
I think one of the biggest problems that one of the biggest problems that passengers seem to face is it's twofold. First, the people who just do not understand airports, and they need a personal training program to explain what happens at airports, and that sort of thing. But part of that is because there's a widespread confusion, because no two airports have the same set of rules.
Right.
And recently, as I've started travelling around Europe quite a lot, just as a regular passenger, just a simple pleb, and some people will say that I'm just a pleb anyway. So you go from one airport to another, and it's, is it belt on, belt off? Is it, shoes off, shoes off, coat on, coat off? Can you put in, your jacket in with your iPad, or does the iPad have to go separately in a tray? There is just no seemingly common standard as to what is supposed to be going on. Each airport has its own set of quirky little rules, so people end up spending twice the amount of time going through this process as they need to, because they're just trying to establish what the status quo is, how it goes here. You start to take your belt off, and they go, no, don't take your belt off. And then the next airport that you go to with exactly the same belt, you must take your belt off. It's just, there needs to be a set of common rules across the civilised world, and that's what we play against.
I would also say that when Edinburgh was part of the BAA group, the British Airports Authority, there was even differences between Heathrow and Edinburgh, even though they were the same company when they were. Yeah. And I've certainly found on many occasions that I start to do something at Edinburgh, and they go, "No, we don't do that here." And I go, "Well, you do it at Heathrow, and you're the same company." Or they were.
Company. Yeah, that's weird. So, that is. You could understand it if one company had across network rules. So like all MAG airports, for example, have their own certain way of doing things, as you say, and likewise with Heathrow and that. It's very strange to go to one that's in Scotland and find that they don't have the same security protocols. But then presumably security protocols aren't necessarily set by the airport, they're set by their governments, aren't they? Because it's border force and things like that are the people who...
I mean, they're set by the government as the basic framework, and then each airport is allowed to have its own sort of rules that sit underneath that umbrella rule framework. So this is where you get all these variations, and there are now quite a lot of German airports where you don't need to take your shoes off. They have a scanner. Now, whether it's going to be this one that Never's just read about, or if it's a different form of scanner, but you keep your shoes on. Whilst I agree that technology needs to be kept updated, what people need to know what's going on. I recently travelled through Budapest. Now, what they have there whilst you're queuing up is a video that shows you exactly what you need to do as a passenger, what you need to take off, what you don't need to take off, whether you take your shoes off or not, where you put your iPad, laptop, etc. I don't know how many people actually watched the video, but I did, and it made my transition through their security painless, or as painless as it can be. But it's education, I think, really, and a common set of standards.
Well, also, I mean, I would argue also actually, because at Heathrow, when I've gone through there a couple of times, they do have, there's no sound or anything. It's just literally a set of slides that are running, an animation that's running on the screen as you're walking through, approaching security even. So it's even before you've got there, and it does clearly show on those screens as you're queuing, waiting for your go. It clearly states what you've got to do and what they expect to put where, etc., etc. But interestingly enough, they were saying in the chat room here, they're actually saying that in America it's all the same in every airport. They've got Shorty Cosgrove is saying that there's a standard across all airports in the USA. And something that surprised me, actually, Owen was saying in the chat room here that Manchester and Stansted have slightly different procedures, and yet they're both MAG. I just find that really strange. You know, you'd think like all BAA airports would have a certain standard. So is it the airport that's responsible for the security rather than, say, Border Force's involvement is only literally when you come back, I guess, is it?
Yes, it is. And at the risk of offending Shorty, it's not actually the same at every US airport, because they have a different set of procedures if there's a canine on duty, a dog. Okay. So, for example, at Orlando International, if there is a dog on duty, then you don't have to take your shoes or your belt or your jacket off. You just go straight through. Yeah. Okay. I know that might sound wholly bizarre, but that is how they play it. Equally at JFK, through BA's first class security, you don't have to take any of your shoes or belts or jackets off. You just walk straight through.
Yeah, and Mashes has said something similar here in the chat room, where she said that I haven't had to take my shoes off in years, and also again, sort of somebody else was saying, like, what is it? Malaga has a shoe scanner at the crew line, and if you beep, you have to take your shoes off while you're wearing them, like there on the scanner. In America, you have to take them off every time, which is certainly my experience when I've gone through.
I mean, Shorty's just said in the chat room that I'm right, my bad. There's no need to apologise, Shorty. No. It is just one of these things that, depending on how many different airports you go through, determines your sample of different levels, really. But they are certainly more. What's the word I'm looking for? I've had a brain fart. More standard in the United States, because it is the TSA that does the security.
Right. Okay.
Pretty much across the board. I think there are one or two airports that do their own. So there is a bit more standardisation. I think most people in the United States will agree that the TSA are a fairly humorless department or function, whereas at least some of the European airports, you can have a bit of a laugh and a joke with some people, as long as you choose your subject matter carefully.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, actually, that mirrors what Pip said here in the chat room. He's saying that it'd be nice if security workers realised how different rules can be at different airports. Had many a heated debate over the years with some of these fine workers. I
think the general thing is, if you want to save time at an airport through security, wear flip-flops.
Right. Okay.
There we go. That's my top tip.
So other than the fashion
crisis... You will
get
arrested because you do need to have some basic underwear, because you're now committing an offence if you just turn up in flip-flops.
Right, good point.
And that's not the sort of thing we want to see, Carlos.
No. Okay, how about the socks and sandals rule?
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. No. Okay.
No, I told you last time that you wore socks with your sandals not to do it. It's just not trendy.
No,
okay?
Indeed. The Nike Air Jerusalems are a very special, kind of shoe.
I mean, I know it fits in your locality, but when you travel outside of the county, Carlos, this is just not good.
Look, not all of us have web feet. Some of us are actually from outside of the county. There's no need for that.
Anyway,
you were only brought in to increase the gene pool, weren't you? I mean,
right.
It's just tied in hell.
Okay, that's not worked out well for them.
I'm kind of worried now. I'm worried now because we've left the last story for Captain Al to read.
Uh-oh. And what is it?
And it's a story. And Al, I mean, take it away. basically.
Okay, this comes from that well-known publication called the Nairobi News.
Oh, Buddha, right. Okay.
Which for you, Carlos, is somewhere in South America.
Okay.
Okay, Al.
And this story is written by Chad Kitundu.
Right.
A flight had to be diverted.
What was the headline for this story, Al?
Flight makes emergency landing after passengers fight over fart.
Right. Okay. Is this kind of like you know? Do you
story
remember
this? Because I shall read on and then I'll explain why it's interesting.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
A flight had to be diverted and forced to make an emergency landing, not a normal landing, an emergency landing, after a fight broke out between passengers mid-air after one of the passengers could not start farting.
Wow.
The low-cost Dutch airliner was flying from Dubai to Amsterdam,
Well, that's
and
a
the
long
pilot
flight.
had to land in Vienna after the flight. Oh, sorry, after the fight. I haven't got my reading specs on, I do apologise.
That's an unfortunate
The pilot
slip,
of the
yeah.
Transavia Airlines flight decided to make the unscheduled stop in Austria after things got a little out of hand during the journey. The Daily Mail, quoting Dutch news outlet De Telegraaf. So this is the Nairobi News, who are quoting the Daily Mail, who are quoting De Telegraaf.
Good,
reported
lovely.
that two Dutchmen objected when a flatulent co-passenger seated next to them kept breaking wind loudly. The two men pleaded with him to stop and complained to the flight crew as well. However, the passenger continued to fart despite several requests from passengers and the crew.
Right.
It is unclear as to whether he was suffering some sort of medical condition. A brawl subsequently broke out between the offending passenger and the two Dutchmen, which is when things started to get out of control. That's when the pilot made the decision to land the plane in Vienna, reporting that passengers were on the rampage.
Right.
Austrian police later boarded the plane with police dogs and escorted 4 suspects off the flight. However, no arrests were made since none of the detained passengers had broken any Austrian laws.
Okay.
According to the Mirror, a police spokesperson confirmed that the incident had occurred due to a passenger suffering from wind who was not attempting to restrain himself.
Right.
Well, if he didn't have a cork with him, there's not a lot he could
No,
do,
indeed.
is there? Strangely enough, this is not the first time an incident of this nature has taken place on an airplane. In July 2017, an American Airlines flight had to be evacuated at a North Carolina airport after a man reportedly broke wind so violently it caused nausea and headaches amongst his fellow passengers.
Wow. Okay. Right. I mean,
That is one heck of a fart.
Indeed. Now there are several things. There are several issues that I have with this story. Not least of it's presumably, I think it's safe to say that the reason why the aircraft was diverted to another location was not because of somebody farting, but purely and simply because a fight had broken out on the aeroplane. I mean, that wouldn't have been the reason why it had been turned around. Now, and then the second point I'd like to make here is certainly having been in a confined space with Carlos over so many years, the most likely thing to have occurred in such an incident is the fact that the other passengers would be unconscious around him. They wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, it's just like, I think it's safe to say we've gone to new depths here on the Plane Talking
Perhaps
UK
this could be
episode
the
205,
tag
Carlos.
for this week's show.
Right, yes, all right, leave it with me. Yes.
Certainly plunged to new depths. You're absolutely
Well,
right. I mean, where are we going next week? What in-flight incident is going to cause some sort of brawl? A passenger turns up with last remaining portion of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
My goodness! Oh no! Now that would definitely cause a fight. There's no two ways about that. It's. I mean, any thoughts on this at all, Nev?
It's almost. I can't really find the words actually.
Right.
I think that
you're in shock, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, we've all had those situations, haven't we?
Yes.
Where
we'd like to, but we shouldn't.
There's been issues.
Yeah.
It's a question of how you deal with it,
Yes.
or do you shout out at the top of your voice, "Get in," or something like that.
Get in! There you go. I've just done one for you.
Yes, there we are. Yeah.
Neil Landwarn in the chat room has said it could be aerotoxic syndrome. And
Okay.
and Shorty Crosgrove has said as well, did the masks drop from the ceiling?
Possibly,
I mean,
yes,
know,
absolutely. Oxygen levels are a bit low.
Yeah.
Yes, there is that. I don't know. What is this? Like?
Neil said it's a load of old guff, really.
Right. Okay. Good. We're gonna have a long chat, I think, after the show comes about where you get your stories from.
Well, I thought I'd end on a high.
Yeah, or a low, as
Or a
this
low.
has turned out to be. Anyway, that is
Where we bring
the aviation news at element of the show to a close. And it is, as always, time to welcome Nev's passenger experience. Perhaps you'd like to share with the world what we've got to look forward to this week.
Yeah, well, this one is all about regional flying and what it's like in some of the smaller airports. And actually, we did talk about that slightly on the show earlier. And specifically, this one's about in Edinburgh. And I was up there about a week ago, and I had a chat with one of my colleagues there. And have a listen to it. It's quite interesting, I think. Hello and welcome to another Nev's Passenger Experience segment. Well, this week I'm in Edinburgh on business, and jolly cold it is too. The wind howling down Princes Street in the city centre was pretty brutal, I can tell you. Whilst I was there, I met a very good friend and business colleague, Douglas Bolton. Douglas has been involved in the audiovisual industry for about the same time as I have, and we always have a natter about the good old days and how technology has changed in that time. Whilst I was there, I thought I would have a chat with Douglas about regional flying and how Edinburgh Airport has changed over the years. When I first went there in 1985, there were the usual shuttle flights to and from London, the Highlands and Islands operations, and just a handful of holiday destinations in the spring and summer months. Nowadays, it's a very busy place, and there are always new bits being added on to it. And I began by asking Douglas what were his early memories of the airport.
Yeah, it's certainly advanced a lot in recent years. I can remember when it was Turnhouse, which was a long time ago. Well, still is Turnhouse up to a point, but now the passenger airport is very much Edinburgh Airport, Edinburgh International Airport, I think, actually. Yeah, it still feels quite small when you come back from bigger airports overseas, but it's moving on and it's improving. And they've added a lot of flights recently to interesting places, which means it's going to get busier and busier, and I guess that drives more development.
Certainly. I think that the guys on the security side of things, the immigration, have done a magnificent job. It's so quick now compared to how it used to be, I think.
Well, they don't basically care, do they? I mean, you know, what we're sending out of this country, they don't care what's coming in. No. Seriously, yeah, they do. They spent a lot of time developing both the departures security and the arrival security, and I think they've got it pretty slick. Of course, airport security is always annoying, but if it's got to be there, it might as well be as slick as it can be. And yeah, the guys at Edinburgh and girls at Edinburgh seem to have got it quite good.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, what about your own sort of flying? We've just come back together, or also separately. You came into Edinburgh and I went to Heathrow from Amsterdam. What sort of flying do you do generally for work and for leisure?
I have to say I generally do very little flying. I'm not a regular flyer. Most of my work happens in the UK, and I'm a train and car user by choice. But when I do fly, you know, I like the flight to be, well, I like the whole experience to be pleasant, which it generally isn't nowadays because of all that security stuff. I suppose what I don't like about air travel is the facelessness of it, the fact that any airport you're in feels like any other airport. Generally, you can't see out of any airport, so you don't really know where you are. I believe there's a lot done in psychology courses that explain why that is. But for me, flying's not a thing I enjoy. I'm not scared of it. I'm not worried about it. I just don't enjoy it. So I would choose other methods of transport when I can.
I remember when we worked together at the same company a while ago, you would always prefer to take the train down to London. So how long would that take from Waverley to King's Cross, for example?
Well, it depends exactly which train you get, but the fastest you can get is 4 hours exactly. And the normal one is 4:20, 4:30. You know, they vary a little bit depending where they stop. But for me, city centre to city centre, that's quicker than flying. It's also a lot more expensive than flying, but that's my preference. I can properly work for 4 hours on the train. Can't do that in a plane, or not on a 1 hour flight on a plane. So yeah, for me, that's a better solution.
I agree, and I've talked to a few of my colleagues that were travelling to Amsterdam this time from London. Next year, or maybe 2020, there's going to be a direct service from St Pancras to Amsterdam directly, and that's just going to be over 4 hours, which will be brilliant, won't it?
For me, that would make it quite a long journey, because the flight from Edinburgh to Amsterdam is only an hour and a half. But yeah, that would be quite enjoyable, although I guess a lot of it's in the dark tunnels. But yeah, I know for you, Nev, that's a tricky thing because you have a fear of spontaneous combustion when you get in a train, but you know, it's okay, really, it's okay.
Yes, I'm far more comfortable 5 miles above the ground. But what about when you go on holiday? What sort of places do you go to, and what kind of airlines do you take on?
Well, I'm one of these odd people that doesn't go on holiday a lot, partly because I'm self-employed and so is my partner, so work has to come first, and also because we enjoy where we live and we don't get to enjoy that very much when we're working. So when we've got time off, we tend to stay at home and have the odd day out here and there. But we used to fly more regularly than we do now, and it was usually Greece or France or Portugal or places like that. But it's so long ago that, you know, I guess the Wright brothers were probably at the helm, and so it's not very relevant now.
That's very true, but things have changed, haven't they, a great deal in terms of how we get on and off planes, and it's, as I've said before on this podcast, that, you know, doing 600 miles an hour through the air is now the easy bit. It's now getting on the plane and all the security stuff. It's not a lot of fun, is it?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly what I'm less keen on. Is I think the bit either end of the flight is really quite unpleasant, and you certainly don't feel like you're doing anything special. The bit in the air is fine. You know, I think a lot of parallels with the health service, really. The bit in hospital's okay, the bit getting there and the bit going home is not so good. I don't find flying an attractive proposition, and I suppose that's maybe got an influence on why I don't do it very much.
Well, Douglas, thanks very much indeed for talking to me today. Really appreciate it.
As ever, Nev, it's been an ordeal, but hey-ho.
Find this and other great shows at the Aviation Media Network.
thevoicesinyourhead.com.
The Plane Talking UK podcast is a voluntary project that aims to keep you informed with the latest aviation-related stories from newswires across the globe.
Producing our content does cost money though. If you enjoy our show, why not help us keep on the air by making a donation towards the server and website hosting fees through PayPal. Any contributions would be greatly appreciated.
Are you an Amazon user? If so, why not do your shopping through the link on our website? There's no cost to yourself, and Amazon pay us a small referral fee on qualifying purchases.
To find out more about the show and to meet the team, take yourself to our website, www.planetalkinguk.com,
or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/planetalkinguk, on Twitter via @planetalkinguk, or get in touch via email on podcast@planetalkinguk.com. Thanks for listening.
FlyB 5823, Trent Dane for 23-hour Manchester, Wizz Air 6X, climb flight level 210, direct to Bretlands Park. United 123, maintain 280 knots. London 2TME, turn right onto Bravo, link, 21 join Alpha, hold at Mora, Speedbird 472, LOC/DME, approach runway 27 left, follow the green stand 544.
That's enough air traffic control for today, Nat. Bedtime.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to fly a commercial passenger jet? Looked up at the sky and thought, I wish that was me? Well, now anyone has the chance to have a go at flying in a real aircraft simulator. NP Simulations and Flight Experience London, the only official Boeing licensed product of its kind in the UK, offer you the chance to fly anywhere in the world in their fixed-base Boeing 737-800 flight simulator. And that's not all. Ground School London offers many different courses for the up-and-coming pilot looking for a start in aviation. With prices starting at just £109, the sky's the limit. So for the ultimate flight simulator experience, or engaging preparatory courses, including those for schools and colleges, check out the websites at www.london.flightexperience.co.uk and www.groundsschoollondon.com, or call on 020 300 40 616. NP Simulations. Fly your dreams.
As always, Nev, sterling work.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. And yes, it was very cold in Edinburgh.
I bet.
When I was up there, I must say, very chilly.
I bet. So listen, we've been we had a long meeting, didn't we, at Christmas time, didn't we, Sir Nev? And we sort of made several things where we wanted to sort of improve, if you like, the way that we film things and the way things we do like that. Carlos's job was to find less stories about farting and food. That's gone really well, as you can probably tell from this week's show. But myself and Nev have been working very hard behind the scenes, Nev especially. And as I'm about to show you the camera, if you are watching inside, you'll see what the latest
treat if you're watching by YouTube.
The special purchase is that's just recently occurred.
Yes. Well, what we've decided to do is that we thought, well, how can we get slightly better quality video and this kind of stuff? I have, the Plain Talking UK guys and girls we'll be using this camera for doing a lot of our work in future. It's a 4K Panasonic camera. 4K was not the price, I'm pleased to say.
Right.
It
wasn't far off, to be fair.
It was not far off. Actually.
No, indeed.
It'll be some really interesting video that we'll be able to show you this year. And we've got a couple of video projects coming up for some other people that we're doing as well. We can't talk about that at the moment, but I think it'll be very interesting to see some of the results. I've just tried it the other day and it was fantastic. I think Matt's going to have a bit of a nosebleed with all the large file sizes I'll be sending over to him.
I think I'm going to need to invest in a WeTransfer account or something like that, really, to start with that. I mean, and at the risk of overexciting the chat room, Nev, I must say that is a rather fabulous muff you have.
Yeah, the chat room's gone.
You can't beat a good muff.
Good muff, no, indeed. Quite right.
And this is manufactured by an Australian company called Rode, very famous for their mics and so on. And this is what they call the dead cat.
Very good, and it does vaguely resemble one, it has to be said. It's sterling work.
But anyway, so here it is, and you'll be seeing this at various air shows around the country, and we're really looking forward to putting it through its paces, I must say.
It's a Bobby Dazzler, that one is, Nev.
Yeah, a bit of quality, isn't it? Absolutely. We're looking very much also with studios in mind, actually. As I say, Saturday, the building of the studio will commence. And we're hoping to get in there, hopefully in the next month, I think is the dream.
Hopefully,
is to try and get installed, and it'll be lovely because it means we won't have to keep breaking this down just so that I can have some space in my office to move around, which will be great. But so lots of things changing as promised, if you like, for 2018 with PTUK. Not least of all, I know that you and Nev are now definitely going to Farnborough.
Yes, we are. Yeah, we've booked accommodations for Farnborough.
Indeed.
Yes, I shall be there too.
Very good.
That's a reason for not turning up, obviously.
Right, absolutely, yes. Unfortunately, the way things are looking at the moment, unfortunately, I won't be able to attend, which is a bit of a shame. But,
no.
But we'll see. We'll see what we. I am working on it, but as things stand at the moment, then not able to. But
we shall. We'll be there, and obviously
I'll have an ice cream for you.
Thank you. Yes, do please. Yeah, you'll need to have at least 3. Indeed.
No, I think it's definitely Nev. It's going to add a whole new dynamic to when we do the air show interviews
and stuff like that. Absolutely.
With the new camera.
Yes, it will. And as I buy a lot of my stuff from Amazon, although the camera didn't come from Amazon, lots of the bits and pieces have arrived, like the new mics and more lighting and that sort of stuff. And every day something else pops in through the letterbox, more cables and bits and pieces, because you can never have enough cables, can you?
You can never have enough cables. That is correct, Nev.
So I think it's going to be really good, and I'm really looking forward to trying it all out at some of the air shows we're going to this year as well. Sorry about my focus on my camera. It's gone a bit weird for some reason, but never mind. Hopefully you can still hear me.
It's all right. It's only the military coming back at any moment, and Al will be asleep, so it won't matter. It's fine.
No, we have, and on that note, we do have this week. We have just a few military stories to do.
It like I do normally.
We'll pause, Al. Pause in.
Indeed.
Skype issues, Al.
What's that? Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
No, we have got just 3 stories to bring you this week on the military news, which are all very good, I will say. Very interesting stories.
So let's bash on with those straight away, shall we? Here we
Let's go.
It's military time. And I must say, first story is a little unnerving, but anyway.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So this first story is on the Evening Express website, and the headline, Aberdeen flight in near miss with Royal Air Force fighter jet. So a passenger plane came close to colliding with a fighter jet shortly after taking off from the city's airport. Eastern Airways flight from Aberdeen International Airport was heading to Stornoway when the pilot noticed a Royal Air Force Typhoon fighter jet so close he had to take evasive action, as did the Royal Air Force pilot, who was flying one of 2 military aircraft in the area. The aircraft came within 200 feet of each other, and it happened because the fighter pilot got distracted by cockpit duties. The UK Airprox board, which probes near misses, had published a report into what went wrong and has graded the incident B, the second most serious category. It was apparent the fighter jet had become distracted and didn't monitor his altitude as he made a left turn to follow the other fighter jet and simultaneously tidy up his cockpit and adjusted a knee pad that had become uncomfortable. The incident actually happened on August the 25th last year. After taking off from Dice around 1 p.m, the Eastern Airways aircraft, a Saab 2000, headed towards Lewis and encountered the 2 fighter jets at around 1:20 p.m. above Moray, around 15 miles south of Lossiemouth. According to the report, the pilot noticed the 2 Typhoons were flying 1,000 feet above the altitude they had been cleared to fly at. The first Typhoon moved from left to right, and the second Typhoon seemed to move towards the Eastern Airways plane, causing the plane's Traffic Collision Avoidance System, or TCAS, to sound, and pilot descended immediately. The Typhoon pilot also moved away. The error was noticed and corrected after 10 seconds, said the report. It added that the aircraft were recovering to base, and it's often during the most seemingly benign tasks common to all sorties, such as recovery to a home base, that distraction is most likely to become a factor. An Eastern Airways spokesperson said that the pilots were receiving a service from Scottish Air Traffic Control and were made aware of 2 fast-moving jets in the vicinity above their flight level. The Saab captain reacted to the aircraft's TCAS alert system to descend immediately, which he did to maintain safe separation from one of the 2 military jets. They later said as well that our crew were operating in accordance with the air traffic control and company procedures. An RAF spokesman said that the incident, which was caused by a pilot becoming momentarily distracted by other tasks, which led to the aircraft ascending to a lower height than the air traffic control had advised, and the pilot took corrective action within 10 seconds. The pilot has provided a frank and honest account so others can learn from this error.
Well, I think it's safe to say that, I mean, however you dress this up, I mean, at the speed at which everything moved, and I know he responded within 10 seconds and it was all corrected, but I mean, everything moves so fast in the air, doesn't it?
Well,
so,
fighter jets especially. I think he was probably going a little bit faster than the Saab 2000.
I mean, it's not a great advert for the RAF, it has to be said.
But I mean, Matt knows where the area where we live here in East Anglia, we are, well, where we are now, we're in a kind of valley, and we get a lot of low level pilot training.
But of course, in this case, it wasn't actually necessarily low flying in this case, is it? Because they were 1,000 feet higher than they should have been, essentially.
But 200 feet with each other, they're fairly close.
It's where we wish we had access to Captain Nick, really, because I'd love to hear his thoughts on that incident, really.
What do you reckon, Nev? Bit of a worrying situation.
Yeah, the thing is that obviously things in the military world happen very fast, don't they? And that's because of the closing speed of aircraft and that kind of thing. So the reaction times have got to be very quick. But there's going to be near misses. There's always going to be these sorts of things. And I think the only thing to say is, as long as people understand what's happened there and that they can mitigate it in future, and lessons can be learned from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I think the car insurers in the UK would verify the statistic that I'm about to roll out off the top of my head, and that is the majority of accidents in the UK, these are car accidents, happen within half a mile of people's homes. Yeah. Because you're in that environment where you're very comfortable and therefore very complacent. I think that probably is a situation that comes into play. And I'm trying to remember, but I don't think Aberdeen has anything more than an air traffic control zone, or an ATZ, an air traffic zone around it, which is a very small area. I don't think it has any controlled airspace. So I think this took place outside of controlled airspace. So there is an argument to suggest that whilst the RAF guys were certainly distracted and not doing what they should have been done, that we do have areas of conflict dotted around the UK where everybody has to play together nicely.
Yeah. I think that's a fair comment, isn't it? It's one of those, isn't it?
So next story, Matt. This one for you on
indeed,
on the air
and Cosmos International. So great. Well, at least it has air in the title, so hopefully it's.
This is one for
it's
Stephen
not the Daily
Grant,
Mail.
actually.
I'm grateful for that. Anyway, so the the RAAF pursues wedge-tail upgrade. So Australia's E7A wedge-tail airborne early warning and control, the EWAC. Is that no? Is that right?
What
do they call it? There is an acronym.
We have AWACS in here.
Yeah, we do, don't we? That was what I was getting confused with. So the AEW and C aircraft are being upgraded to meet new civil airspace regulations and to improve data storage and broadcast capabilities. Australia has completed the first phase of upgrades to the RAAF fleet of E7A wedge-tail airborne early warnings and control aircraft. The aircraft are being upgraded to meet new civil airspace regulations and to improve data storage and broadcast capabilities. So why do they've reported this? Anyway, under the $582.5 million Air 5077 Phase 5A contract, Boeing Defence Australia is leading the upgrade in 3 releases over 6 years, with support from Boeing's Airborne Surveillance Command and Control team in the US and a network of suppliers. The aircraft and associated support systems are being upgraded with new advanced combat identification sensors, tactical data links, communications hardware and encryption systems, and mission computing hardware and software upgrades. 2 aircraft are scheduled to receive the full suite of Release 1 Phase 5A upgrades by early 2019, which include target identification, mission computing upgrades, and increased situation awareness through larger visual monitor displays. The remaining fleet will receive integrated IP chat communications upgrades with mission computing data link upgrades and a new wideband satellite system and dual display upgrades by 2022. The on-time completion of the first phase of Phase 5A, equipped with the fleet of 6 aircraft with satellite position broadcast technology and the latest version of a traffic collision avoidance system, which perhaps might have been quite handy in the previous story. These upgrades will keep the aircraft compliant with mandated changes in the civilian environment. The wedge-tail upgrade program is a key element of the Australian Defence Force's strategy of becoming an integrated 5th-generation force. The E7A wedge-tail is based on a Boeing 737-700 with the addition of an advanced multi-role electronically scanned array radar and 10 mission crew controls, which can track airborne and maritime targets simultaneously. Let's hope that they're not also being advised to keep their aeroplane on Windows 10, as we covered in last week. You're right there, Al.
Oh yeah. So I just nodded off. So there was just some sort of whining noise in the background about some wedgie.
Look,
or something.
my speaking voice is not that bad.
I think they should have brought you in on this upgrade, Max. I think you and Nev would have loved this with doing all the integrated systems and stuff and all the data link stuff. I think that would be right up yours and Nev's.
I do get a bit nervous when any of these systems don't actually, it's like I'm one of these where it should be one provider that decides all, because that way it sort of, you can be sure that they're going to have, compatibility. I get very nervous when other companies are brought in to do things.
Perhaps at their show at some point in the future, if we get to see one of these E7As inside, we'll just sling you and Nev inside with one of the guys and kind of leave you with it. Yeah,
sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Okay, why not?
So last story then, Nev.
This is from Flight Global, a proper website, and it's about the fact that Norway has completed the first in-country test of a braking parachute on a Lockheed Martin F-35A, with the trial taking place on the 16th of February at Ørland Air Base. Our combat aircraft must be able to land during extreme Norwegian winter conditions, and Norway will experience in this. With experience in this, will help develop and test the F-35 braking parachute, says Norway's F-35 program director Gen Morten Cleaver. Test and
I presume that Boeing designed the brakes on this thing.
I knew he was going to say that.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, and actually, I don't know if Matt's going to run the video at all here. But
yeah, we've got
just looking at it, and the I don't know, but the braking doesn't seem to be very effective at all, even with this parachute. But obviously, it's a prototype model. So, but the test and certification activities for the modification began in April at Edwards Air Force Base in California, using test aircraft AF-2. Initially checking handling characteristics and braking performance on wet and dry runways. A second phase is underway at Eielson Air Force Base, Alaska, to validate performance on icy runways. I'm very pleased that we're on track with the last part of the Alaska testing and now have verified that the system works as it should on planes that come to Ørland, says Cleaver. He says that the F-35A is more stable during deployment of the braking parachute than the F-16s it's replacing, partly because of its wider footprint and heavier weight. This is a big step towards ensuring that our new combat aircraft can operate safely in extreme Norwegian weather conditions, says Cleaver. Further test activities are required before the system achieves final certification, and Norway is the lead customer for the modification, with development activities also part funded by the Netherlands. I was just thinking about braking like this on a runway. Al, must have some very weird effects on, rudder control and steering control, trying to keep the thing on the centre line, I would have thought.
Perhaps he's nodded
Perhaps
off.
he's not there.
Yeah.
I think he has.
Yeah, I would have thought so. It's within that says that the parachute is more effective with the F-35 because it's a heavier aeroplane. Well, I would have thought that means that you need an even bigger parachute to stop the thing going off the end of the runway, because the heavier the mass, the more energy it's going to have, the more kinetic energy. So that surprises me a little. But I guess that because the chute comes pretty much down the centre of the thrust line, if you like, that it doesn't produce too much in the way of control issues. But I've got no experience. I wouldn't to comment. I don't know if it's ever flown anything with the chutes, to be honest. So pass.
Okay.
Fair enough. I don't blame you. Yeah.
Well, we've gone from a story finishing the commercial segment about wind to one with braking, wind, parachute, wind. Anyway, moving on. Swiftly, Matt gives me glaring looks from across the studio.
I have no words for you. What?
I know the chat room's gone quiet now. You see?
Has it? Right. Okay.
Well, that's the military for you, isn't it? It's just a big turn off.
Indeed, absolutely. As we watch the figures drop,
tens of thousands of listeners up until about 6 minutes ago, and all of this happened.
Honestly.
Well, the good news is it's over. So
no, that is where we're going to bring that segment of the show.
But you'll never get them back now. I mean, it's like the commercial break, isn't it? It's not the one in the show, but like on TV, as soon as the adverts come on, see what else is on now.
Yeah, well, there is that. Yes.
Oh look. There's a dog having a poo on YouTube. I was watching Plain Talking UK. The military's come on. There's a dog having a poo.
Right, okay.
Come and have a look, everyone.
Right.
Anyway, so we're going to start to round the show.
Is this where
now.
Jonathan Warner lobs some sort of missile in my
direction?
Possibly. Yeah.
Jonathan Warner's giving a very stern look now from his car as he's driving along. I think
there is indeed. It's what we're going to do is we're just going to give you a bruff. Oh, never mind. You do it. I've obviously lost the ability to communicate this week. It seems. Off you go.
So anyway, that is where we're going to bring the military segment to a close. We're talking on the subject of air shows and stuff. We're going to try and post at some point on our social media pages some of the air shows that we will be attending this year. We've got a kind of pretty much 90%.
So is this so people can avoid them?
Yeah, pretty much. So people can avoid them. Yeah, we're going to make sure we put down the ones that Al will be at, just so everyone can be pre-warned.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, to bring their own catering.
To bring their own catering. Yeah,
they're going to starve otherwise.
I think one of the biggest things that you have to do at an air show, as most listeners will know, I was getting there,
is take out a mortgage if you want to.
There is that. Yeah, absolutely.
Is the obligatory picture with Al with a coat with ice cream.
Absolutely.
That is one of the things you have to do.
In fact, that should be your mission. Every time you dump into. Every time you dump into Captain Al.
You're having issues this week,
I don't know what's the matter.
Honestly.
Maybe it's because I didn't have my glass of wine that I normally have with my Sunday lunch. Perhaps that's where I'm going wrong.
Sunday lunch? What's that? Oh, yeah, I've got that waiting for me at home.
Waiting for you when you get home. Anyway, if you want to get in touch with the show, it is planetalkinguk.com, www.planetalkinguk.com. It is our Twitter handle is at planetalkinguk. If you want to follow us on Twitter, facebook.com/planetalkinguk will take you to our pages. And of course, we don't hear from him as much as we'd like these days, but don't forget the fantastic Plane Safety Podcast, where a certain Captain Al regularly frequents, and a very good episode. It's called Waffle and Feedback. Episode 49 is very much worth a listen if you haven't done so already. So make sure.
Also, don't forget, if you want to grab yourselves one of the PTUK t-shirts as well, we are still producing PTUK t-shirts. If you want to go over to the website, click on the store tab on the website, and that'll take you through to the page where you can purchase one of our lovely PTUK t-shirts with the embroidered logo.
Indeed.
And we'll get those posted off to you as soon as possible.
In the next few weeks also, mugs will be available for those that wish to purchase.
Very good.
And can I just point out that the t-shirt is actually a quality item. It's not just some sort of tat that you've picked up in some sort of East Anglia seaside resort. It is actually a quality garment.
Made locally as well.
Made locally, locally sourced.
So it's a quality Fruit of the Loom t-shirt that's been embroidered using one of our local companies here. So it's
so we're going to say a big thanks then to everyone who's joined us in the live chat room this afternoon in YouTube, in the world of YouTube. Thanks to everyone who's joined us and took time out of their Sundays to join us. And also, not forgetting as well, everyone who listens to the show via the download kind of medium through iTunes and all the various podcast apps. A massive thanks to you. Any last words, Sir Nev, before we finish the show?
No, just to say to everybody, thank you very much, Steve, for joining us again, and really enjoyed it. Sorry it had to be Sunday afternoon this time, but it was Mrs. Nev's special birthday.
Yes.
So I was unable to join, but anyway, we're back home now, so thanks for bearing with us, allowing us to do the show on Sunday afternoon.
While we're talking about that, and obviously the legend that is Nev, I notice in the little Google Drive that we share amongst ourselves, I noticed there's a rather exciting Nev's passenger experience lined up for next week.
Oh, there is, yes. And, well, do we want to... we don't want to, tell people too early.
Please do titillate us now. Come on.
Indeed. It's safe to say I'm hoping that there might be some sort of home secrets that are perhaps shared during this interview. We'll leave it at that.
Some revelations there.
Yeah, that's what we're all hoping for. Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of the most awkward interviews I've ever done, I've got to say.
Is it? Wow. Okay, anyway, yes. So somebody who is very... so it's basically...
Not since you interviewed Madam Whiplash, I understand.
Right, anyway, family show.
I can do a lot of talking, that's for sure.
Indeed. Gonna be good fun. I'm looking forward to playing that out and actually listening to it while I'm editing it.
Yeah, and don't forget as well, we have got the awesome Armando joining us in the studio here at the barn next week.
Indeed, looking forward to that.
So it's actually going to be a top-billing show, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Well, hopefully, yes, absolutely. I believe there might be...
two really, really good things to tune in for next week.
It is, absolutely, yes. And Owen will also be there, but never mind.
Owen's always here in spirit.
Well, he is, absolutely.
He? Actually, I think Owen was
he's
in the
amusing everyone in the chat room at the moment.
Yeah, he's done well.
So that is where we bring episode number 200 and something or other. 205?
205.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. Episode 205 to a close. Thanks very much to the legend that is Al for joining us as always.
Thanks, Al.
Oh, you are most welcome. I kind of gate crashed this one.
No, it's all good.
Gate
crashing is always indeed. And Nev, obviously a legend as always. Thank you so very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Yes, and I will see you on Wednesday. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to have my mum actually said to me. She said you and Nev are going to we're just going to have so much. It's going to be so geeky. Oh wow!
I'm expecting to see the table.
We're going to the Broadcast Video Expo at Excel on Wednesday, in case we haven't got enough equipment. We need to have a look at some more.
Absolutely.
And I've got to say, the lunch is on me because the quality of food down there isn't too bad, actually.
Okay.
So it's worth a go.
I'm looking forward.
No herrings.
No.
I was going to say,
No, not at all. No, it's all it's all a good fare and not the sort of thing you'd expect. Well, the prices are what you'd expect in Excel, that's for sure. But no, it should be good.
That's because they've had to spend like $3.5–4 grand on the pitch. That's why they have to put it through. But anyway, there we are.
So I'm expecting to come into the Barnes studio next week, Matt, and see a pile of pens, key rings.
Oh no, I collect pens and key rings. Don't you worry about that. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, swag.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. But I am going to leave the credit card at home, so I won't be coming home with a Nev style camera. That I can.
Well, I was going to say it's not the pens and the badges you want to worry about. It's the piles of boxes of routers and gizmy bobs and thingamy doodahs that you want to worry about.
Yeah. So looking forward to that immensely. Anyway, from all of us here, it is time to say goodbye.
Take care, everyone. Have a great
goodbye, everyone.
Sunday.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
And I'll put the credits in at the end because they wouldn't run for some reason.
Let's pretend.
Okay, I can do it now if you like. There you go.